your specific question of what I thought it was an interesting question. I reflected on it for a while last night, what the majority owes the minority, which I know you guys will look at probably.
These three words, love thy neighbor, repeated again and again from the pulpit, from among in our own conversations. Jesus said, love thy neighbor. But this man is showing that $240 million are being spent to teach Christians hate thy neighbor.
Yes. When did Islamophobia become prevalent in the United States?
You know that in 2008, an African American was elected as the president of this country. It was a big leap, a big step forward for America to show that the person who is being considered to be the leader of this country, it does not matter who his parents were, what his color is, what his origin is. It is his own integrity and the leadership quality that matter here, right? Yeah. When he became the president, so the same section of people who are anti-Semitic, who are anti-Muslim, so they were really, unnerved to see this happen. A black man coming to the White House. So they wanted to make that historical leap of America into nothing by changing the structure of the Senate and the Congress. So in 2008 he was elected. In 2010 the elections, they wanted to have elections where there is a sense of insecurity and people vote the way they wanted. They wanted them to vote. So what happened? We were wondering what's happening. This was 2010. Suddenly Muslims became a target of hate.
In 2010, an uproar and malicious acts against Muslims in the U.S. availed.
So you may recall the pastor in Florida declared that he was going to burn the Quran. We were wondering, what is the relevance? Why is he doing that? And it was really such a hateful act. Burning of the Quran for us is not a problem because it's not only as a book, but it is also memorized by Muslims, by millions of Muslims. So therefore, if you burn 1,000 Qurans, a million Qurans, there will be a million people who have already memorized it.
What can be done to stop Islamophobia?
So we have to take extra steps, make extra efforts to understand each other. That's where the institutions come in. Our universities, schools, and colleges should have the right information in their textbooks. Because one of the problems in the countries where you see this discrimination going on and minorities being demonized, the demonization starts from the textbooks. So here we have fought against that, but we need to continuously scrutinize our textbooks and see that there isn't anything that is degrading for the other denominations. I recognize you that you are so and so, and I respect you for what you are, and you respect me for what I am. But when there is this wall created, this invisible wall of hate, then we cannot contribute to our country what we can otherwise.
If I could start from the idea of differentiating stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination, where often there is not clarity that those are three distinct concepts. Stereotyping is the cognitive component. It's what we think about other social groups, characteristics, attributes that we associate with them. That prejudice is the affective, the emotional component. It's how we feel, it's how we, and then discrimination obviously is the behavioral component. So you might think cognitive, I think Italians are loud. Affective, I don't like Italians. Discrimination, I'm not going to hire you because you're Italian. Okay, so the kind of distinctive components of the cognitive part, the emotional part, and the behavioral part.
How did America's societal view on Muslims become altered so quickly?
Well, think about what America was like then. Depending on where you live, there were many Americans, I'm sure, who had perhaps never met a Muslim individual. I told you that when you first develop a schema, the first time you meet a basketball player, for example, that you start saying, oh, that must be what it is to be a basketball player. And it's as you meet many others over time that you start getting a more complex schema. If you had never met a Muslim, so you weren't integrating this information into a complex pre-existing schema, but your idea of Muslims are now, they hate Americans and they want to blow up our buildings, then you are starting your understanding of the Muslim faith by this one act and these very extreme individuals that you are now associating with that faith. So I suspect that's a lot of what happened at that time frame, is that for individuals who didn't know Muslims, that this now became their understanding of what a Muslim was.
How did America's open door policy alleviate hate between different cultures and beliefs?
There's a theory called the contact hypothesis, and the contact hypothesis suggests that under the right circumstances, contact between group members can help break down stereotypes. So I mentioned that perhaps before 9/11, individuals just had never really met somebody else that was of the Muslim faith. So maybe they didn't know much, and the little bit they knew now didn't sound very attractive. These people apparently don't like us and are going to, come hurt our country.
What are the risks to ignoring Islamophobia?
One of the most obvious risks of if people are prejudiced and fear and feel negatively about a group of individuals and feel that gives them the justification to behave negatively toward those individuals, that is certainly problematic. But I think there's probably a more subtle impact as well, in terms of the idea that we certainly live in a very global economy and a world where people interact so much more now than they did 100 years ago. So I think setting up competition between groups instead of cooperation is not ultimately to the benefit of society. And I think when people are prejudiced and feel negatively about another group, it prevents the type of cooperation that ultimately can make our society work better.
What does the majority owe the minority?
I thought it was an interesting question. I reflected on it for a while last night, of what the majority owes the minority, which I know you guys will look at probably from a variety of perspectives, but I think that I've heard it said, diversity is such a big deal these days. Diversity, diversity. Has anyone actually looked at, are we pursuing diversity just because we think it sounds right, or is it actually beneficial? And there's actually quite a bit of research that suggests that diversity in and of itself can enhance creativity, it can enhance more careful problem solving, and that to the extent that minority members as part of a majority group enhance that type of thinking process, it leads to better problem solving and to better solutions.